recording. Where are we? Episode 21 of the Duke London podcast. I'm here with Magical Bones. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, bro.
Sick. It's fucking really nice to have you here. Thanks for coming.
It's good to be in a space where I can actually talk to someone and like, I mean, we're slightly we're kind of 2 meters apart, but
this will do. At least there's not more than 6 people here. That's the main thing. Super appreciate you coming down. I don't know. There's probably like a lot of young dancers that don't remember you from the scene as much. Or like, I mean, probably know you dance, but didn't know that you were like a big part of the scene, like
many moons ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, was it that many?
Do you know what? It's like I'm 38 now, and even that feels quite. I'm 38, wow. But when I think of when I was, at the peak of like in the dance scene, I'm talking like 2001, 2002.
Fair. Yeah, that is.
All the way up to like 2008, 9, 10 was when I sort of started transitioning fully into magician.
Yeah, because I remember you from like Throwdown, like when I first started coming in. I think it was like 2007 when I first started going Throwdown, and I don't remember when it was. Well, like, when did you start doing magic, like properly?
Well, I've always been doing magic.
Okay,
I'm a bit of a geeky guy. I've been doing magic as a hobby, so it was always like a serious hobby that I started when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I had sort of my geeky magic friends.
Sick.
Like I used to hang out with, and we'd practice card tricks or sleights. And I never really brought it into the dance world. I didn't even think it was going to be a professional magician. It was just a hobby. It's only later on that it sort of transitioned.
Yeah, because I remember at Throwdown you did, I don't know if it was a judge demo or just like a little show or something, but you did the straight jacket something.
Yeah.
With like doing windmills and stuff.
Yeah. I was playing around with ideas.
Yeah. I remember that was like the first memory I have of like you doing magic at all, but like especially in the dance scene and like kind of fusing the both. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then, now you're like fucking doing that full time.
Do you know what's mad? Because like during that period, no one really knew I was a serious hobbyist with magic. Like everyone just knew me as Bones. So my nickname, like back in the day, was just Bones, B-Boy Bones.
Yeah.
And I do Throwdown. I do an event called Jump Off.
Yeah.
All the breaking battles that we had, Breaking Bread, all those days.
Because you did popping as well, right? You were like
popping,
B-Boy and Popper, yeah.
Yeah, B-Boy and popping. And like people, I used to do card tricks and stuff, but no one really, unless you were like around my tight circle, no one really used to know that I was actually seriously into it.
Yeah.
It's a close-up magician. So it was around that time that I started playing around with, magic in and adding it to the dance and trying to, because people are like, oh, you're a sick magician and you're a dancer as well.
Yeah.
But you should like try and do something with that, do something. And I was like, yeah, and so I was looking for ideas that naturally fit. And just, a guy breakdancing out of a straitjacket just felt like a sick idea.
Yeah.
And that's when I started playing around with these different takes on it and evolving. Yeah,
that's mad. And so just to kind of, I guess, put it in context for anyone listening that doesn't know, like, so yeah, you were in the scene like way before me and way before a lot of people. Breaking and popping, and you like weren't you like one of Spin's first teachers or something?
Yeah, like so B-Boy Spin, I used to dance and I used to teach in his school. I used to go to quite a rough school. And they wanted some breakers to come in and sort of inspire the kids, and because in his school the boys didn't want to do dance. They thought it was a bit sissy and they didn't really like it. So they wanted to bring in some guys. I was around 21 at the time, and they were like, can you come in and do what we call the Boys Project? Right. Teach these kids b-boying and encourage them to take dance. And Spin was there. He was one of the better students, actually. He wasn't like some of those kids in the class were a bit just like too cool. Too cool. And then when we came in and we just started like busting like, windmills and stuff, they just sat up and listened. So yeah, I was one of Spin's. I was actually the first person that got Spin into breaking.
Sick. I think he told me that as well. Yeah.
And we, he was good, man. He was actually a good popper as well. People don't know this. Yeah, like when we first started, I used to teach popping routines as well. And he was a good popper as well. And
All
then,
right, spin.
but breaking his it just took him.
Sick. So yeah, so you like worked before some people like that. So yeah, just to kind of put it in context, I guess. And that, obviously that's where I first met. Like when I first came in the scene, I was like super young. Oh, I was like 18 or so, and I was just like.
So you came in what, like 2000?
2007 was like when I kind of officially started in this. Like I think I took a couple of classes like towards the end when I was like 17, almost 18. And I was like, yeah,
I was from like the rebirth of just after the rebirth of b-boying.
Sick.
So like, it came back around 96, but it was still not really. It still was, you had Second to None, all these different crews and stuff. But it's only around, I would say around 99 when like, Project Soul, Career and stuff, it became more, you had all these movies that people started really
like
looking into b-boying. So I'd say around 2000, 2001 is when like my era was like when I was sort of really into b-boying and stuff. And popping, and then it was like b-boying and popping. It was all just big crews, and I was probably like seriously into it from then till, like I said, 2009.
Yeah.
And then I did quite some big music videos at the time. That was a bit of a big deal.
So you were doing like dance like full time professionally for a bit?
Yeah. Well, yeah, not full time because like in those days, like. You could be a full-time dancer, but even in these days, like you're sort of dancing, but especially as a freestyler, like, at the time I don't do any choreography. I'm just like, I'm the person that comes, just
do some tricks and
spin on your head. I'm that guy. So you just have to take what you get.
Yeah.
Like you dancing in events, you dance in fashion shows, music videos, tours. But how we would supplement our income is I used to dance on the street. I used to bus in London. We were the first, one of the first crews to like really set it up, like b-boying on the South Bank.
Sick.
With One Motion Crew. Shout out One Motion Crew. So that's what we do. I do like commercial work, bit of b-boying in the streets.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm African as well, so my parents were like, you need to go to school and get your education. So I was in uni as well.
Yeah. What were you studying?
I was studying maths.
Oh, sick. Oh, nice. Yeah, actually, I think Lee mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was full on doing all bits and bobs, and you could do that in those days. There's like, there was like only you do like maybe 2-3 music videos or commercial work, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Calling your agent.
Yeah, fair. Okay, sick. So then you've been doing magic since you were young. I have so many questions about magic. I don't even know where to start. The first one I was going to say is like, do you get like everywhere you go, someone's like, oh, show us a trick? Because I feel like that's like dancers. It's like, oh, you're a dancer. Oh, show me some moves. But that must be 10 times worse for a magician.
Yeah, because like obviously magic is real, right?
Yeah.
So like people don't understand that it is an art form and it is the art of illusion and perception. So we create this stuff, but then like people just think you can just do it. So people are like, oh, yeah, but you're a magician, innit? Just make money appear, or just vanish and just reappear here. Like if you're a real magician, and so you always get. I think it's worse than a dancer because I feel like you can be at any place at any time. If people know you're a magician, they just want to see a trick. And it's like the rules of the performance rules are not, you don't have what you would have if you were a singer or a dancer. You say, well, mate, I'm not performing, I'm just chilling. When you're a magician, it's like, no, but you're a magician, just wave your hand and just make something happen now.
Right. They don't see it as much of a performance as like the other things.
Yeah, you don't really have that. So you do always have to be like kind of ready.
Yeah.
And
how much do you entertain shit like that? Do you like tell people just, no, I'm not doing it? Or like, do you sometimes want to like, I'll make these people smile? Like,
I go back and forth,
Yeah,
I go back and forth.
Depending on how you feel?
Yeah, well, depending on like, so when I became a professional magician, it's a lot harder to want to do. When you're a hobbyist, you always want to show tricks. You're dying for someone to actually show you a trick. When you're a professional magician, you're like, oh man, I've just been doing this corporate party for 4 hours. I don't even want to see another coin or card for another like 10 years. So it is harder to do it in that setting. But then you forget like you know, you try and remember those moments like when you're a kid and the reactions and why you're doing this. Because I think dancing is different. Why people dance is slightly different from why people do magic.
Okay, go on.
Because like if you're a dancer, you're dancing, you're not really, well, in my perspective, I don't think if you're a dancer, I don't think I'm dancing for you. I'm dancing for me. Like it's my expression, my feeling. Yeah, we all show us for freestylers. We do want that appreciation of what we're doing. But I feel like as dancers, we're dancing because we have this internal kind of expression we need to release. Whereas magic is totally different. It's like I'm actually not doing magic for me.
Like to like, for an example, as a dancer, I would probably, like, if music was on, I'd probably dance at home.
Exactly.
You're not like doing card tricks in the mirror, like, that was really cool.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you can do card tricks in the mirror and just look in the mirror and just, but
that would be more for practice as opposed to just your own enjoyment of like, oh, this is fun. Like, I'm just making stuff disappear. Like,
it's all about giving people that feeling of astonishment, that experience. That's why we do magic. So it's a bit of a,
and I guess maybe if you know, like, it also, you couldn't just do it for yourself, because if you know how everything is done, you don't have the same effect as...
Well, you don't need... The whole purpose of it is really for the reaction. I want to make you feel some form of some experience and astonishment. So if I'm just, you know, I can feel that, but like, it's not the same as like you when you feel that. And I'm waiting to see and give you that feeling. And that's why we do magic. So I feel like, even though as magicians always complain about, oh mate, like I have to always be on point, but it's like, well, yeah, because you know, you should be giving people, you're doing it because you want to make people feel something. You shouldn't be doing it for ego, which is different with a dancer. As a dancer, especially as a b-boy, it's ego. Like I'm nice. Do you know what I mean? It's for me. I'm nice. I'm being like you said, I'll be in my bedroom just being nice, and also like, even if you're in a space, you're still. It's not really for I'm not trying to, I want you as a dancer, I want you to look at me and go, wow, he's an amazing, he just hit 90s or he hit, whereas with a magician, I want to make you feel like, wow, like how, like you just this kind of feeling of like this childlike wonder, which you don't really have as a dancer.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes you can. I mean, if you see a good popper, like I'm sure when we were all younger, we saw Salah. We were like, that's magic. Do you know what I mean?
You still get that reaction sometimes when you like do waves for like little kids or something. Like, whoa, are your bones made of rubber? Sick. Okay. Oh man, so many questions. Don't know where to start. So I'm just trying to wade through all the questions in my mind, because this is like something I've never spoken to a magician properly.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Have you seen a magician like live?
Only I've seen like, I guess, street magicians like at like big parties and stuff, you know, where they kind of go around and like, oh, I'm gonna do a trick, that sort of stuff. I'm a bit like, and I mean,
are you a fan of magic?
Yeah, I think I definitely am, and I love seeing it, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. I love, even when people like who don't do magic show me a little trick, I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. I think I'm probably one of those annoying people that I'm like, I won't, like Lee, whenever we talk about magic or something, he's like, I don't want to know how it's done. Like, just amaze me. And I'm like, no, I need to know. Like, even if I don't, even if I know I'm not going to find out, a part of me is just like, but how did he do it? You know? Oh, I know what I was going to ask you as well. Is like, when you're watching other people, do you, because I'm thinking of myself as a dancer, not that my enjoyment has been killed completely for dance, but I can't enjoy dancing the same way as I used to. Like, anytime I go and watch, even like top level choreographers who I'm like nowhere close to being as good as, I'm analyzing. Every time I watch, I'm like, would I have done that? What makes this so good? Why is this? And like, I'm like, oh, that must have taken a while to rehearse. And I'm like, oh, that didn't, I know what she was trying to go for, but it didn't work. You know, like I'm doing that. So I can never really sit back and just go, oh, that's pretty. So like, as a magician, do you watch other people and you're like, how did you do that? You know, like,
I definitely don't. So I always have this thing I say, I don't really care about the how, actually.
Okay.
I'm more about the wow.
Right.
So like, I rarely ever get that kind of like, how did he do it? Because I've been doing magic since I was 10.
Right.
So like, I feel like I know quite a lot of methods and stuff. I'm more interested in the presentation of it.
Yeah.
That really excites me.
But will you analyze that as you watch?
Yeah, but I can appreciate. So my appreciation levels is different from when it. I'm not, like you said, I'm not watching it and going, it's real, or it's because it is
Right,
real.
right.
But I'm watching it and thinking like, wow, like I love the way you've incorporated that storytelling, and it's a great piece of work. Or like, so I'm looking for different things, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
I do enjoy those things, and more importantly, I enjoy seeing other people enjoy that. Like the best thing to do is watch a little kid watch a magic trick.
Yeah.
It's like I could just watch that all day. Just like, oh, a little smile, like they're so happy.
Yeah.
And it's just, and that's for me is, if you can do that with magic, then it's a good thing. But it is tricky sometimes to not do that and just sit back and just watch it as a layperson, because we don't have those layman eyes.
But I think also, I mean, the flip side of what I just said is like, you can appreciate it maybe more than the average person, because if someone pulls off a hard trick seamlessly, maybe I'm gonna see it and part of me is gonna be like, oh, that's kind of the same thing as a card trick or something, and you're gonna be like, nah, like he did some real shit.
You know what? That's a really good point, because the one thing we do say as magicians is the sad thing about some magic is that like sometimes the method is actually more impressive than the actual trick.
That's why there was that show, I forget the name of it, where the guy he was like masked.
Oh, the masked magician, he was sort of revealing,
yeah. But it's like, I guess that's why that sort of shit is popular, because it's like, holy fuck, like I didn't realize how much goes into this little like, oh, he just changed a person, and you're like.
But that's the sad thing we talk about. It is like, if I've got a James Bond method for making a coin disappear, like I put a coin here and there's this whole thing that you don't realize that's going on, that's so sick. It's like there's a trap door here, there's a gadget, there's a wire line, it's all this beautiful method and it's so clever. And the sad thing that we always talk about is like, but you never really get to appreciate any of that. All you care about is the coin was there and it vanished. You don't care about that whole James Bond thing. It's like we do as magicians. We're so geeky on that. We're like, what's the next the coolest method to do?
So do you ever get to a point where you're like maybe the method is crazy complicated and you can pull off something, but you're like, oh, there's no, like, I'm just going to do the simple thing because it's equally as impressive to see this as it is to see.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing we always have to keep reminding ourselves. It's like, what's the end result? Sometimes, if you do have this whole MacGyver method of achieving an effect, sometimes you're like, yeah, okay, right, it was worth it because the result is you get what you're looking for. Yeah. But then sometimes you're like, dude, you could just tell someone to just do this or this, and it's like all that work is like you got to be more efficient.
Yeah.
So
and I guess maybe it's context as well, because I'm thinking again, like dance, it's like if a little kid asked me like, oh, do something cool, I'm not going to be doing the same shit that I would try and impress like a judge who's been doing it 20 years. Like I'm just like, oh yeah, here's a wave. And they're like, cool. Like, I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time doing something intricate when you're not going to appreciate it. So maybe if it's like the content.
Magicians have a real hard time doing that. Magicians have a real hard time, especially when you're just starting out learning, like just keep it simple. Like they really have a hard time understanding that. And even, I'm a victim to that as well, because we overanalyze, we get into this whole method and this whole strategic thing and like, and then it's like, dude, like just keep it really simple. So I always have to keep reminding myself, like for example, you see me, one of the tricks I do is quite popular is my bat flip trick. And like when I first wrote that routine, like I had all sorts of ideas with, so I just bring the card in here, gainer 360, catch the card, then catch another one, and then pull a glass of champagne out. And I've done all of these things, not the gainer 360, but I've catch the card, pull a glass of champagne out of my pocket afterwards. And then like I just overcomplicated it. And it's like someone said to me, it's like, oh, just mate, it's just you did a backflip. You caught a card. Do you know how that trick came about? Actually,
do you want to explain what the trick is for anyone that doesn't know?
All right. So what I do is I say to someone, pick a card. It's a pick a card trick. They pick the card, they look at it, they remember it, they place the card back in the deck. I then shuffle the cards, so it's lost in the middle of the deck. I take the cards, I spring all the cards up in the air. I then do a backflip through the cards, catch the card that the person chose, landing perfectly, and reveal it. And yeah, so that's the trick, and it's just a nice visual way of taking something that's quite small, which is a normal. I'm just making it feel big on stage. But when I first was doing it, like I would try to overcomplicate it and make it really. I was thinking too much like a magician, and I remember I was training down at South Bank where we used to train down there, and I was just like practicing flipping through cards, and I had a different method. I was gonna catch it in a hat, because I thought, oh, that would be more sick. Like I thought, I'd spring the cards, I catch it, flick this hat, and then pull out the card. And then like I couldn't. The method was all complicated, and then I said to one of my friends at the time, they said, oh, what other ways? I said, well, I mean, I could just do it like this. I could just flick it in the air and just backflip and just do that. And then everybody that was training, some people were training on the side, they stopped and they were like, mate, did you just do a backflip and just catch that card? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, fuck, that was sick.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that's literally the easiest way of doing it. And I was like, oh. Is that
effective enough? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, mate, just do that. That's it. And so that became, it's kind of like my signature trick now that I do a lot. And it's technically it's quite simple to do.
But the
effect is quite it's quite good.
I saw some, maybe it's because follow you or whatever, but like on Reels or whatever, there was like some random magician shit, and there was just some dumb thing. I mean, it's probably dumb to you, but like. He had like a ring on his finger and he did like that, and he didn't change his finger, and he's that kind of thing. Yeah. And like it, after like 4 seconds of watching it, I was like, oh, I see what he did. But my initial reaction was like, oh shit, where'd the ring go? But like, it's like for something like that, where it's like real, I guess the desired effect of like, oh, cool. And it made me feel happy for a second. And I was like, oh, and then, the more you think about it, you can figure it out. But I guess it's that idea of like the context. It's like, what's the point for a 15-second reel or whatever on Insta? Do you need a mad complicated...
Well, there's difference. So there's different levels, types of magic, which is interesting. So like there's different forums. So you've got magic for live performance in the real world.
Right.
You've got magic for TV.
Okay.
And then now there's this whole new world, magic for social media.
Interesting.
In my generation, when I was growing up, we didn't even have social media. Yeah. So you only had magic in the real world and magic for TV. And they're both designed differently. So magic on camera in general is more harsh, like because the camera doesn't like captures everything.
Yeah.
In TV you can edit, of course. Social media is different because people have the rewind function. They can screenshot, screen grab.
Yeah.
So when you're designing magic for social media, you have to think like, okay, the method has to be so sharp, because you're thinking, right, someone's going to watch this a gazillion times, like how you did with the trick that you're talking about, it's called ring thing. How you did with the ring thing, you watched it a gazillion times and you were like, oh, I seen what he's done there. Like, yeah. And then you sort of lose the appreciation of it the first time you watched it. You're like, oh,
it's like them those chewing gums that like lose flavor real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like it tastes good for a second, but it's like it goes quick. Yeah.
So magic for social media has to be on point. Like it has to be like you just literally cannot. You have to design it like so it works and it loops and people just like, what has he done that? Or I think the guy you're talking about is more a comedy kind of
it was
clowny.
It looked like some kid, I think.
Yeah. I think I know you're talking about. And he sort of does this kind of like prank magic.
Right.
A bit like silly kind of stuff. So they don't mind exposing.
It being easy to, yeah. Because I feel like watching it, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like part of the trick was like, I was supposed to know that it was easy, but everyone around him was like, whoa. And I was like, it was like me and him were like in on the trick of like.
Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about. It's one of those the prank magic kind of, which I'm not really a fan of, if I'm honest.
It's like, does it feel a bit like...
it's cheap.
Not as much integrity as like the.
I'm not trying to be. I just feel like I like it. I think there's room for everything.
Yeah.
And, some people.
It's like TikTok dancing. It's the same type of shit. It's like, yeah, it's fun for like the average person, but we wouldn't class that as like.
Well, you can get some way with so much in TikTok dancing. You're like, I watched this girl, and she looks amazing for those 3 seconds. She's like tick 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 tick.
Yeah,
tick.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, wow. And then it's like, but it's only on that medium. It's like in the real world, you're gonna appreciate something slightly different. So.
Yeah, and also I think it works both ways. Like, it's like you wouldn't. Someone who's maybe like can create like an hour-long theater piece who's like amazing and in-depth and all that sort of stuff. Maybe they couldn't go viral on TikTok. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I find that when people talk about like I don't know, you know, like these rappers that make like really catchy and they're saying like like Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang. It's like the same thing over and over. It's like we look at it as like, oh yeah, that's cheap, but also in a way you can have an appreciation for that because it's like maybe Kendrick Lamar couldn't make like a super catchy like song that would go off, or maybe J. Cole's a better example, but like, you know, it's like it is in a way it's a skill in itself.
Yeah, because it's like we having this similar thing in magic where it's like a lot of real world performers, so people who kill it in the real world, like who are corporate magicians, party magicians, and they're amazing. When you see them in the real world, they know how to engage with a crowd. You know, they've got good social skills, but then online, like it's a whole different platform. Like the
same things don't attract people,
and it's like you look at some of these social media magicians, and you know it's great what they do, but then you know, like you're not good in a party, like, and I don't mean that in a horrible way.
No,
I just mean
just
like
different platforms.
It's just a different thing, and like it's funny because we say like most magicians get into magic because you know they want to have friends and stuff. They want to, you know, they're quite introverted people, you know, don't really have good social skills, and use magic to sort of engage with people. The funny thing is that when you're a professional magician, all those things you're not good at is what you need to be good at to be a professional magician. So to be a professional magician at a party and go up to a group of people, you need to have the confidence like, hey guys, how you doing? I'm the magician. I'll show you a couple of bits and engage and be funny. When you can't really be like sort of
Oh yeah, you want me to do a trick?
Even how amazing your flourishes, your sleight of hand is, you need to have good social skills. And a lot of the social media magicians I've seen them on like these prank things, and like you hang around with them and you're like, you're so good in like this world, and I meet you and you're just so like, oh, you're like, come on.
But I think also maybe it's worth like, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, I guess, but like because it's a newer platform, you like maybe you have to go through all the cheapest, easiest ideas first before it, like when I guess like magic was first invented, it probably wasn't as intricate and crazy. It was just like a guy going, here's a card, here's not a card, like, and then that was maybe a bit cheap at the time, and then over time now because the stage is such an old platform, let's say, you've gone through all the easy shit, and now to be good you have to do more in depth, whereas in social media maybe it's like, you know, in another 100 years social media might be like a really intricate.
Actually it's the other way around actually. Magic was very because magic is actually was, when it first started, was people thought it was real,
right?
So the first magic book was showing people that, you know, it revealed the secrets that some of these people use in mediums and all these people, saying that actually this is not real. This is these people are deceiving you, and they show, I can't remember the name of the book, it's gone out of my head, I should remember it, but
so it's like a kind of debunking of...
Yeah, the first book was showing people, revealing all these secrets that people would do. And there's still the ethical issues that go on in magic anyway. So it was, these people were so good technically, really good technically. Like you really thought they had powers. And then, you know, and then when it got to the stage, like stage magicians in, you know, the 1800s or the early 1900s were amazing.
Right.
Like they were technically superb. You were good at cards, you were good at close up, you were good at illusion, you could perform. And remember, in the 1800s, 1900s, there was no projector screens and
so you had
mics.
To be more...
So you had to imagine you're performing for an audience of, you know, 500 people, 600, 7,000. You know, mics weren't the same as they are now. You had to project. You had to. It's like acting. You really had to. They were great performers.
Right.
As it's got easier, you know, we have technology to advance in some of those skills, in some of those skill sets. So there is this idea that sometimes like people get upset because we feel like you're cheapening things that have taken years to perfect. Like Ring Thing, that thing you're talking about. you know, some magicians might be upset. It's like, mate, why are you doing that on social media and just exposing it? Like, it's such a great trick in the real world. It's such a great moment that's been used, and it's like you're just spoiling it. Like create magic for social media, but don't create magic that's been, you know, over been done over centuries,
and it's like then just easy to figure out,
and just showing them, you know, just literally just going through it like it's nothing. And it's like, nah, man, there's something beautiful about something as simple as a coin vanish, like can look really, really good. But then some of these magicians, they just go through it, and it's like, oh man, you're
not treating it with the like dignity
that's my thing. Or maybe it's a bit of a geeky old school way of looking at it.
But I think artists are like that with every art form, really.
Yeah.
Like, we have the same thing with hip hop, even but even more so like with ballet or any of these older like type of things. Like anything that's taken a while to, like, hip hop's 50 years old or something like that, and it's like we treat that with so much respect. And like you know, these older art form, anything that's like taken a long time and there's a lineage, it's like,
yeah, you want people to really like. That's the one thing in magic in our world, like people don't like appreciate like it the same way. There's this idea that everything should be just given for free, like, oh yeah, like on YouTube, people just exposing secrets. Magicians, like young magicians, have this idea. Oh yeah, tell me how you did this thing. And it's like, when I was learning, I had a mentor called David Weeks, who was my drama teacher at the time, and you had to show him your free slides and your double lift or your palms or whatever, and show him you had it at a certain level before he could like tell you more secrets. So you really had to
earn it.
You know what I mean? Nowadays it's just like, yeah, we'll just put it on YouTube and expose it. And I feel like it doesn't have the value anymore. Like when you do that, you just dampens the value. And it's the same thing with dancing. Like the generation of dance, when I was dancing, it was different. Like we didn't have YouTube. So like it was all tapes.
Yeah.
Like we used to send the tapes and we're like, wow, have you seen that? Like,
yeah.
This guy in France is doing that. And tapes was such a bit like, they were so precious back in the day.
Yeah.
Like if you had the tapes of like, you know, the Electric Boogaloos, all these people, and you didn't, you had this kind of information that no one else had. And when you saw some of the pioneers, or you saw people that you saw in the tapes in the real world, you're like, rah!
Yeah, you're a real person. Yeah.
YouTube now, unfortunately, you lose that. It loses the value. Like you just be like, you see like, I don't know, Nguyen or something, or you know, B-Boy Tata, and you've seen him on YouTube over and over again. You know all these sets. You know what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
And then so when you go to a competition, you just don't have that like level of appreciation. The value is lost because you're like, oh yeah, well, you're almost like doing it with him. Like you're like, yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's nothing we can do. Time's moved on, and you know.
Yeah, it's also that trade-off of like, yes, we've lost that like the specialness, I guess, of these things, but then how many more people have been able to access it? Do you know what I mean? Like there's
True.
Pros and
good
cons.
Point. Yeah. That's a good point.
Because it's like, if you think about how many, even just like, you know, within the scene, obviously it's easier for people to do that, but like how the scene must have grown over the world because of how easy this information transfer was.
That's a great point. Yeah. And so there is that side to look at it as well.
But I guess it's just figuring out how to instill the values that we got. Because like when I first started, it was when YouTube just started, but there wasn't loads of stuff on there. Well, maybe not when it first started, but
YouTube was 2005, wasn't it?
Yeah, so all right. So I started in 2007. 2006, I started to see stuff, and it was like we would have the DVDs of like Just Taboo and stuff like that. So similar thing, just slightly different era.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like figuring out what the values are that we got from that, because I think it's easy for us, like especially as we get older, to be like, oh, these young kids have it too easy. But then it's like, all right, what was it that we got from not having access to information all the time, and how can we like instill that into young kids? You know, it's like I think for me, one of the things is like, especially when I'm teaching dance, is like and maybe there's a translation in magic as well, but there's things that don't translate over video that do translate in real life that people miss from their dance, that when you watch someone 100%. You're like, I can see that you only watch YouTube because you don't know how to engage a crowd, and you think that things will make the crowd yell because you've seen, how do I say it? Like you've seen similar stuff on YouTube, and on YouTube you've seen the crowd react, but you missed what actually they're reacting to. You miss the build up, you miss the structure of the round, you miss the energy and the power in their movement, the quality of movement, which all you saw was that they did this little elbow move. So you think, oh, when I do an elbow move, everyone's going to shout. And it's like, no, it's the whole thing. That move that you saw was just the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there has to be a balance that needs to be struck. Because I know, like, for example, like with Dave Chappelle, he like in his, let's take comedy.
Yeah.
He says like, you know, like, you can't bring your phones in. You can't bring your phones in. You know, you're only going to see the special. You're not going to pre-record it and see his jokes a gazillion times and not appreciate them when you hear them live. So I think like there needs to be a balance that needs to be struck so we can appreciate the moments of like I go back to like events that I don't even think they existed. Like we used to have this thing called Urban Games.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw Dizzy, B-Boy Dizzy, and a crew called I forgot the names now. But anyway, Dizzy, I used Dizzy, and I saw what he was doing on stage. I was like, it was like being in like a child again and seeing a magic. It was so unbelievable, and like if I'd seen that on YouTube and I'd seen it in the real world, I'm not sure I would have had that same reaction and appreciation, understand how he was engaging with the crowd and stuff. So I do think like, it's like what you said, if there is a balance to be struck, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Or just like trying to, because it's like, say if I'm teaching, it's like, okay, I can use YouTube and it's like, oh, it's great that you know all of these amazing dancers. Because let's say when I first started, like I used to meet people just by traveling. And then it's like, I tell people about it and I'm like, oh, I think there's one YouTube video, or like there wasn't really much online. Yeah. But now it's like, great, you know all these people, but now like know that you have to also do the work in real life to understand why they're good, like, and all these things. So I guess it's, keeping that, like, great, you got something from it, but like, let's add the values that we have.
Yeah, it's a weird one because it's like, obviously we're in these crazy times. Everything feels like it's getting even more online than before. And it's kind of weird because you're like, I'm like, wow, like you just talked about traveling, like being a dancer, that's part of the beauty of it. It's like going across to different parts of the world, traveling, meeting these people, battling them, you know, and then becoming friends with them after you battle them. And, you know, all these language barriers, it's the whole social, like, I think the beauty of hip hop dance versus, you know, some of the other styles is that ours is really a social dance. Like it's really about the elements that for me I think that make hip hop important is like meeting people, socializing, learning about your culture, your community, like, you know, going for lunch afterwards, you've done a training session, all those things.
It makes up the culture.
Yeah, you can't really get that online, and now it's like, okay, we'll do dance lessons and design, and it's great, you know, like you said, it opens it out to a wider population of people. But like,
then you also lose something at the same time.
Yeah, is it like it's crazy because now it feels like it's going more and more towards like online classes.
Yeah,
and like, I mean, online dance classes is a bit nuts to me. Like, we have to do it, and we've transformed, but it's kind of like,
I've taught a few. It's tough. It's really tough to like connect with the students, or like just to be able to really like give them a proper, like, it's not a proper lesson, I don't think. Yeah,
it's just a weird kind of world. And I feel like the Matrix is really happening. Like, we used to talk about it like when we were younger, and we're like, yeah, the world of Matrix, da da da. And it's like, bro, we're fully doing that. Like, we're really in this world where like online classes, online learning, like, it's just like,
I think the only thing that gives, I mean, I'm always, I guess, being optimistic about these things, but like, I think the only thing that gives me a bit of like hope with it is like, I guess in the Matrix, nobody's talking about the Matrix. Everybody's just walking around like, oh, this is life. If you like, I don't think it's just our generation. Like, everyone that I know in the scene or in the life is complaining about like, oh, it's such a shame that we have to be online. I want to meet people. I want to see people. Like, so we're missing that thing that we don't get. You know what I mean? And we're not just kind of going like, oh,
yes,
this is great.
No, but I feel like we're slowly conforming. So like, I feel like whereas before it was like, if you talk to someone, you know, 20 years ago, and you said the idea that, you know, I could speak to you and talk to someone across the world via watch and speak to someone and you'd sound a bit like, no, shut up, mate. Like you're nuts.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think technology is beautiful. So I don't want to like confuse people.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a good thing. What I mean is like as some of those ideas that maybe seemed a bit wild when I was younger and was seen as conspiracy theories, what happens is like people, they just get fed in slowly, and then people just start conforming. We're all used to when Twitter first came out and stuff, my generation of dancers, we were all arrogant. Like I don't need to go on Twitter and nah, man, I'm not trying to do that. And I still talk to dancers like, I'm not trying to do all this social media and stuff, man. I just perform and just do my thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like there's this whole bunch of kids coming up, and you're like, but I'm better than that guy. I'm way better than him, but he's got 3,000 followers and like everyone's following him, and so you just have to conform or you just get left behind. And I think that's the way it's going to happen, because I feel like even with online dancing, it's like we're now, oh man, online dancing. It's it's not the same, is it? Like, being a PT online or whatever.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But eventually it's just like, we just conform, and then like, we're going to be in our rooms and just like having house parties. Like,
yeah, I think it's like
Zoom.
a balance with everything. I mean, I think it's always a balance, but like, I think if I think of, let's say like when hip hop first started, right? Like you didn't, and then this is, again, I wasn't there. I'm just talking from shit that I've watched, but like you didn't have like, let's say you didn't have rap records that were selling, right? You just had the MCs in the party and this type of thing, right? So then the first people that started selling worldwide rap records and getting signed to big deals and stuff weren't the best rappers or the best MCs. They were just people that got lucky, and what you were saying about the young kids on Twitter, you're like, like there was probably MCs going, these really motherfuckers have a like deal and they're just like some nobodies, you know what I mean? Like, so I think you go through that when there's like a new platform or technology or anything, you go through this period of anyone can kind of just get lucky or whatever. And then things start to settle maybe. And now it's like let's say with like people selling rap records and stuff, like obviously you've got a lot of people that are shit. But then also you've got like some of our best, most highest selling rappers is like Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole and stuff, where it's like,
so it evens it out and eventually the cream rises to the top.
I think like, again, maybe I'm being optimistic, but it's like, I think maybe that will happen with dance, and maybe it kind of already is happening, where like even with what makes me feel good is say like the Red Bull BC1 All Stars and like the dancers that they've signed. It's like maybe when dance first started getting popular and like some of the movies that came out and some of the like people that were rising to the top of the dance scene and being
they weren't the best. You're like, he's not.
Yeah, it's like,
right.
why are you famous? You just got lucky or whatever. And then now you start to see like, okay, some of these dancers that are getting in even like Hollywood movies and doing dance stuff, or
good point.
You know, like the BC1 guys that are like, I guess they're on like salaries or whatever.
I use that. Do you know what? It's funny because I can use that same analogy with Britain's Got Talent, which
right.
I'm in.
Yeah, we were going to get there eventually. Yeah.
But it's exactly the same thing, because with Britain's Got Talent, for example, whether you're a singer, you're a dancer, most professionals were sort of like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do Britain's Got Talent. Like, no. It's sort of a cheap way to kind of get to the top. But then I think, as you said, as more professionals started entering it, in the magic world, for example, more people started entering it, better competition. So the level just became harder. Yeah. They started to understand the art form better. Yeah. Like they understand dance as well now. They understand magic a lot now and singing. So eventually the cream does rise to the top, and you do start getting a lot more professional people doing these things and thinking, oh, actually, do you know what? Like, why not? Yeah. Like, that's why I did it. Before, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be doing Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that, actually. So thank you for bringing us onto this topic. But so talk to me about the like decision to go on Britain's Got Talent, because I think for me, a lot of the stuff that, or like you said, like more at the beginning and earlier on, it was like, oh, these are people that are they're just guys or girls that are just like, oh, I just sing in my bedroom and I really want to like be a singer. And it's like, oh, maybe if they win this show, they'll have their shot. But it's like, now you have a lot of people who are already professionals going on. So what was it? Because you were like full-time magician before this, right?
Yeah.
So what was it that made you want to go on Britain's Got Talent? Because also I think, especially talking to dancers, a lot of it is like, I'm working as a dancer. Like, I don't want to go up there and try and be like, oh, please like my stuff. When if they're like, no, you're not good enough. It's like, yeah, well, fuck you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, what made you want to like?
Well, it's that I think like there's a difference between dancing and to a certain extent in magic, and
Okay.
I'll touch on that a little bit later on. But I'll just answer your question now. What made me go on is because I think the where they are now in terms of professional magicians, they actually have real respected magicians that have actually won the show.
Sick.
The guy that you look at and you go, no, if there was a talent show of magicians, he should have won because he's actually one of the best magicians in the world. It's like if there was a b-boy, if there was the same thing with some of the dancers that have won. You're like, actually, no, those guys are actually good. They're not just any odd dancers. Like no dancer's going to have an issue with that. And it's like the right person won. I think a lot of the times in the show before, you've watched it and you're like, oh man, like you people in the scene is like the right guy hasn't won or the right girl hasn't won. So that's one thing. So I feel like now there's a level of understanding of the art forms. Right. Secondly, I think if you're a professional magician, and I say this to a lot of the professional magicians, it's like it's exposure. You've got nothing to lose because it's like it's one of those things where you think, oh yeah, if we have the most terrible audition, and Simon Cowell says those dreaded words of like, this is awful and blah, 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 it ruins your career. But it and I'm not saying 10 years ago it couldn't have ruined your career because it was a big, there's a bigger microscope on it. But like now when we look at it, it's like, most people probably won't even watch it. Like, so if it doesn't go as well, no one's really going to watch it.
And there's also that thing about like no such thing as bad press. Like if people know your name, they know your name.
They know your name. But if it goes well, you got to think about the exposure. I mean, the final, there's like 10 million people that watch that final. So I feel like as professional magicians, when they all say, oh, should I do it? I'm not doing it now. I'm just going to try and do it. They're like, and if that works the long way around, I've been doing professional magic for, over 10 years. I've been had moments like this where, I was in a West End show, one of the first magic shows in the West End called Impossible. Yeah. I've had my own TV show called Around the World in 80 Tricks. I've closed for the BAFTAs. Sick. I've done some good stuff. Yeah. I'm in various odd bits and pieces on TV. However, like your career you should always try and make your career like have continuity. So I feel like as much exposure you can and always kind of keeping your name out there, publicity wise, that's what gives you longevity in your career. That's what makes you not become like, someone who's just been doing this, had one TV show and then like no one's heard of them again, versus someone who's just always constantly trying to stay in the eyes of the public. And
Britain's Got Talent is like quite a mainstream thing.
It's mainstream. It gives you more exposure. Yeah. So when I do the tour next year, which hopefully you guys can come to, buy your tickets. When I do the tour next year, it's just another thing that keeps rolling, it just keeps going and keeps going. Yeah. New show, new thing, new platform. So I think it's good to do that with that. I think, especially as a magician and dancers as well, I think it's the same thing. Get the exposure out there. Dancing, the reason why I transitioned fully from dancing to magic is because I feel like with professional dancing, there is a limit. I was a commercial dancer, right? So like, you have to look a certain way, certain moves you have to do. And, it does have a limit, a ceiling, like you're not going to look as young as someone who's 21 is coming in and, and is willing to do anything, just to get on the, on the camera. Like when you're 30 or, and you're
like, actually, I've got an injury. Can I not do the backflip?
Yeah. And you're just like, you got an injury, or just in the sense of like, you've been through the scene, you understand the bullshit. So you're like, no, I'm not going to be here for 12 hours for X amount of money, killing myself, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm worth better than that.
Yeah, when they can just get a kid who's like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, kids like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I actually transitioned, because I was like, you know what? Like, there's only so many times I can, Flair, windmill, apple jacks, and blah blah. And I'm, you know, I still do it, but not as much. And I don't have to do it the same way I had to do it when I was a professional dancer. And so that's why I sort of I need to keep growing as an artist and continue and move on. What's next? What happens as a dancer when you're like 35 and you're still showing up to like audition? There's nothing wrong with being 35 and showing up. Don't get it twisted. But
you just have to start thinking about it. Like as you go through your career, you kind of have to be more
you're gonna become a choreographer, director, and you move on. So for me, I still like performing. So I was like, oh man.
So there's more of a, let's say, like you saw more of longevity in the magic side of things.
Yeah, because you can do magic till you can't physically. Yeah, because you just you know, wave a wand and waving hands, and if you're an illusionist. I mean, most illusionists aren't as physical as I am. Most illusionists tend to be older guys just pointing at girls to get in boxes and taking all the credit for just going, well, the girl is literally doing all the skills. So, you can be a lot older.
I relate to that with photography, actually. That's like my thing of like, okay, dance and teaching dance and stuff. Maybe I'm going to get old or not want to do it. And I might get an injury or whatever, but it's like you can stand with a camera until you're like dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So I hear you on that. Do you feel, how do you find the experience of Britain's Got Talent in general? Because I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with people about these shows and stuff like that. And, you know, whether it pushes them in a direction that they want to be in, how like it showcases the art. Like, how have you found the whole experience?
Do you know what? That's like I say this to everyone, all the magicians that ask me. I say to them that actually, for me, the experience has been good so far. Sick. You know, I've still got the finals next week, but so far it's been really good. Yeah, and I feel like they found their place. Britain's Got Talent when it first started, it still needed to prove itself. Like they needed to discover the talent, discover the group, the diversity. For example,
that's going to give them the
kudos. So people are like, well, actually, it is a good show.
Yeah, right.
That's the good dance group that won the competition, or this is a good singer that won Leona Lewis.
Otherwise, you get that like was it X Factor? Like where it was like
Popeye.
Everyone that won, I guess, didn't do anything. Yeah, and it was like almost like I don't want to win because
it's like, what's the point of doing that shit? You don't go on and do things. What do you go on and do? Well, you look at someone like Diversity. They've been doing still at the top for over 10 years
and
now.
It shows like that if you win you can springboard from that.
So I lost train.
Your experience on
so actually I've had a good experience because like I feel like the show now just allows performers that know what they want to do just do it. Obviously there is the caveat that it has to like work for, it's a TV show, right? So you know, you have to also understand that like they're making a show, they've got their format, so you either have to try and fit within their format or hope that what you're doing fits within their format. And that's just you just have to take that risk and just be like, okay, well, you know, maybe this works. But I always say this, I think whoever's going to go on the show, don't do it for the show, because BGT is going to have another 2 seasons, another 4 seasons. You know what I mean? It's just going to keep going. They're going to find another, they won't find another Magical Bones, but they'll find another magician or another dance crew to do that. But what they won't have is, so you've got to think like, use that platform and showcase you. You know, what's your thing? What are you trying to do? And so I think they've allowed me to do that. Actually, my experience has been pretty good. One thing, you can't get complacent though. Like that's the only thing I would say about the show is I've realized wow, like, you know, people think that, it's all set up in the sense that like they plan to help you out with this thing. They do help you out and they do try and make sure you have a good performance, but it has to be all you. Don't rely on, you know, them like, clearing your music on like they're going to listen to your music or they're going to do this thing, or you have to really be on them and say, hey, look, I've sent this thing and you know, I've got this dancer, can I get clearance? You just have to keep banging at it, and then you get there. But it's like anything, you know?
True. And what about like kind of reactions to, or I mean, it's not the first time you've been on, like you said, like on TV or on a big stage or anything like that, but like what has it been any different from being on like such a mainstream platform?
Yeah, like
we were talking about like comments and stuff.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we started, and like that's one thing that, you know, when I was in Impossible, you know, we had mainstream press, you know, The Guardian, everything, and I've dealt with mainstream press a lot.
Yeah.
But the for such a big show like Britain's Got Talent, you know, the social media reaction and stuff is way different from anything I've ever experienced. And dealing with that is I'm used to people saying, oh, he's really cool. But you got all different types of responses. And really, you should just shut out from it because it can affect your morale and your performance. And some of the comments, like, you know, my last piece was, you know, I've been doing this tribute to Henry Box Brown, who's this former slave, from the 1800s that escaped to freedom by mailing himself in a wooden crate all the way from one part of America to another where slavery was abolished. Yeah. And he then traveled to England, became this hugely successful magician. So I've sort of been tying that into some of my performances, and I've just been getting like racist comments.
I bet and just after Diversity got shit for
and you know,
their
like
performance.
It's been tough to take, but
where is that more like YouTube comments or is that like Twitter? Like where are you getting the shit?
Twitter's the main one.
Do you get people writing to you or is it more just talking about you online?
Talking about you, and like Twitter's a war zone. I always say Twitter is just a full on.
Twitter is wild.
It's just a war zone. You got to be like fully prepared for that. Facebook is similar. Facebook is kind of similar.
But I guess Twitter is like, it's easier to see who tags you. And
you get tagged and you're just like, well, okay, you know, and you're just like, whoa.
Wild as fuck.
Just trying to perform, like, guys, man, allow me. I'm just doing this, like, it's just a performance. I got into like this political storm, like, of like, you know, obviously with the climate we're now in, you know, the world is very polarized and there's a race war going on. There's you know, health war going on, and like
just all sorts of
everyone, and there's Brexit, and there's all these different things that's going on in the world right now. And I just got like thrown in the middle of this thing, and I'm like, my piece is about so the controversy with my piece is because, you know, there was this whole thing with diversity and Black Lives Matter and the piece they did, which was great, by the way. But then my piece, it just was the timing of it. It seemed like, oh, okay, is he the token black vote? But what people may not realize is I've been talking about Henry Box Brown for, you know, the last 2-3 years for my own stage show. Before all of this was, before, you know, this thing kicked off, before the George Floyd incident. And it's something that's personal to me.
Yeah, of course.
Because growing up as a young black magician, I didn't actually know any other black magicians. Genuinely didn't know any black magicians.
And that's like in your generation, let alone people to look up to or like have a lineage of.
You probably wouldn't be able to tell me any names. Right?
I don't know if I can name you any magicians, but
yeah, exactly.
Let alone
And so it was something that was a genuine fascination for me, because I was like, you know, I used to reference Houdini. We talked about when I used to do windmills and the straitjacket. I always used to reference Houdini, and I always felt deep in my heart about, it'd be great if I could like find someone that, you know, I could relate to and be inspired by. And then when I came across that story of Henry Box Brown, it just literally blew my mind away, because I was like,
this is fucking perfect.
Yeah, man. And role models are so important for minority kids, because sometimes we grow up in certain spaces and environments thinking that we're not meant to be there. So then when we see someone that looks and sounds like us, we're like, do you know what? Yeah, I could be a magician. I could be a president. I could be, you know, I can be whatever I want to be. Like sometimes it's just not. We don't even. You would never associate that. I remember when I was younger, like I didn't even associate like a black president, for example. I thought it was literally a comedy sketch. People used to write that in a sketch, and it's like now.
Dave Chappelle had a bit.
Do you know what I mean? Now people are like, oh yeah, I can be a president. Yeah, why not? I remember Dizzy Rassi saying it in one interview. He's like, yeah, Dizzy for president. Why not? And the same thing with like magic. It's like, you know, I didn't know there was grand illusionists that were, you know, from the 1800s. You know, there's Richard Potter, there's Henry Box Brown, there's Black Herman, there's Ellen Armstrong. There's so many, like I didn't even know until I started doing the research. And I think like it's important to share that kind of knowledge, because it could inspire the next generation. Yeah, for sure, man. And I think now's the fucking time for it, man. Like it may, you know, it's, I think I can imagine, I was reading some of the comments as well, and I can imagine, or I can see what people are saying of like,
fuck me, what am I trying to say? What you were saying about whether people were asking if you were like the token black vote on that show or whatever, and it's straight after diversity, and it's like, yeah, now is the fucking time to talk about these things. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, everybody's talking about these things. They're all like, you know what I mean? Like, which I think a lot of the kind of racist people are thinking. It's like, oh, why do we have to have this shoved down our throats? And it's like, well, no, now's an opportunity to bring all this stuff to light that we've been like hiding under the floorboards for years, you know?
And we do have that issue. Unfortunately, we do have that issue in the magic world. You know, it's very elitist, right? So there's not many women we have in the circle, for example.
Do they like get more like pushed towards like, oh, you're the assistant, or you're the
So women are generally assistants, right? You know, even the idea of a female magician in our psyche is still like to people, and not me. I want more female magicians. Actually, I've got one of my good friends, Sonia Benitez, an amazing female magician. Right. And I'm an advocate for that. But even
just the way it's received.
It's just received differently. It's just not really, when you think of a magician, you think of a typical guy with a white hat. With
probably a white guy.
A white guy with a black hat and pulling a rabbit out of it. It's just this perception, and we're trying to change that now. And like, I feel like one thing that's exciting about the Magic Circle, which is like the Hogwarts of magic, is that we are becoming more inclusive, and there's different people from different backgrounds, different communities, and different takes. Like we've seen the take of like, and have cards and watch. We've seen that take, but how does someone from South London, how do they present
like
magic?
Being real to who you are.
How does someone from the Bengali community, how do they present magic? Like what's their take on it? Like, and how does a female, what's her take on it? Like, what's her perspective on it? That to me is interesting. That's when I feel like it's growing. Like it's not old.
Well, that's the whole thing with representation, isn't it? Is like having different perspectives influence the art, and that's going to inspire. Like maybe the way, like you said, someone from a Bengali community, like that's going to influence some kid in London, and like it all circles round and changes and adds to the whatever.
I've got a good mate who's really good, like Sav, and like. He's this Indian magician, and he's amazing. Like he's got his own take. It's fresh, contemporary.
Yeah.
He talks about a little bit about his background as well. He's got a good take on it, and it's like we've never seen those takes on it. Like on traditional magic tricks and stuff. And like I think, so, like you said, it's time to just rock the boat a little bit. Try something a bit different.
Definitely, and it's fucking nice to see it on mainstream TV, man. Like the diversity thing, and then the like with yours, and it's just like. I was watching it, I was like, this is sick to like have that be the content of the performance, and for these things to not, I think for me, it's the fucking like right direction to go, where it's like, there's some fucking horrific things that happened in the past, and it's like, I think tends to be maybe the problem in a lot of places, but especially in England, where we kind of are like too polite to talk about it. It's like, oh yeah, let's talk about something else. But also, it's like, have it be like, I was thinking of the example of like Germany with the Nazis and stuff. They don't pretend it didn't happen. They just act like we've moved on and we've grown from it. And they have the memorials and all this stuff that's like, I mean, I'm going to Berlin next week, but like you have an acknowledgement of the history.
100%.
Which I think is a lot of the problem in, let's say, like England and America, that we don't have such an acknowledgement for the horrific things that have happened. And it's like, if it's going to start anywhere, it should be the art. Like we should have it, like we should have the memorials. We should have these.
The arts, people are like, oh, why is it political? It's like,
that's where it has to be.
It's always about that. It's always about stances and trying to, and think like.
Because it's an expression of who you are. And all of us, no matter like what, and this is the kind of how I see, I was reading a lot of stuff about the diversity thing. And a lot of the stuff I saw was people being like saying that it's ironic that it's not diverse because it's about black life. And for me, I'm like, that's what unifies all of us actually, is like for them to talk about that. It's like we're all acknowledging this shit that happened through the art, and it's like, it's actually like the opposite of what people are complaining about. I think it's like, oh, that's what's good, is like we are all affected by shit, and we can all have the right to express that through our art. So as much as I might express, something way less like horrific and horrible, through my art, it's still like I'm expressing stuff that means something to me and that made me who I am. And if there's stuff like that for you that's like happens to be like from a lineage of like a guy who was a slave, it's like, then yeah, it's good that you do that because you finally get to do what I've been doing, which is express your, through your art.
It's such an important thing. And I feel like it's being able to know about it was almost like a relief. I felt like, you know, I'm allowed to be here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm allowed to be here and present it because, you know, in the past I was told I'm not allowed to be here. You know, people told me there'll never be a black magician on TV. I've been told that actually. And
I bet at the beginning it was like, and if there ever was, you'd have to do this, this, and this, and this, and this to be accepted.
Yeah, I know. I was explicitly told there will never be a black magician on telly.
Mad.
We won't have that in this country. And I feel like a lot of it is people feeling guilty and like, and also it's also about people not willing to, they feel like something, as you give something to people, you're taking away something from them and people don't like what they feel like you're taking away from them being taken away. It's like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, like let's take the gender debate, for example. Like some men will be like, oh, well, women are, you know, they're getting, now they're complaining about everything, they want too many rights. It's like, yeah, but we've had it our way this whole time. Yeah. Like, you know, they just want, you know, equal pay. Like,
there's something, I saw a quote of like, when you're, like something like when you're on our side, basically, when you're on the side of the like oppressor or whatever, equality feels like oppression kind of thing. It's like, we feel like stuff is being taken away. It's like, no, we're actually just, everybody's trying to get...
evening it out. And it's like, and that's, I think, especially with the race debate, I think a lot of it is that it's like, whoa, wait, no, you're not going to, like, I'm a big football fan. There's a thing where like they just got rid of these two pundits, right? On the Sky Sports, they got rid of these two pundits, three white male pundits. It's been on there for like 20 years, and everyone, there was this uproar like, they got rid of these amazing pundits, and they're going to put these two, they're going to fill them in with black pundits, right? And you sort of have to just take a step back and think, well, what are we complaining about?
Is that what, like, they announced that's what's going to happen, or people were just assuming?
Well, one, that was an assumption. Right. So yeah, it was an assumption, but people already were preempting like and getting angry about that. And it was like, well, these guys have had a good run, first of all. And why shouldn't a show be able to change it up and bring in new, fresh talent? It's like, why not? Like, even it out. You guys have had 20 years. There's never been black pundits on that show. So even if that was the agenda, isn't that like, that's good, no? Like, I don't get, like, why would you be so upset? So, you know, it's all being taken away from us. And it's like, well, you know, you've never seen a black pundit. I'd like to see Alex Scott, for example, who's an amazing pundit, female pundit. Yeah. I'd like to see, you know, Micah Richards, their take on it. Let's see how they present it. Let's see someone else present, because it's like, you know, it brings a new dimension. It's like, like, you know, their personality is different, their community, the way. So it's like, I just find it like, why are you not getting so
stressed?
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's interesting. I was talking to my friend about this, but like, after the diversity performance got all these however many Ofcom complaints, and like looking at the YouTube comments of your performance and stuff, it's like one way of looking, and again, I'm maybe being too much of an optimist, but one way of looking at that is how shitty is that everyone's complaining about these things. I think that's only the way of looking at it if you don't realize what the state of the country is. Like, you've known for a long, like, any of us know, like, you go outside of London to like any of these smaller towns, it's like, this is the general mentality. Like, I've traveled with, you know, friends of mine that are black or Muslim or so, and you just see, you go into like a little pub in like a country town, and it's like, you see the looks immediately, even if it's not aimed at me. I'm not blind to it. So if you know that what the country is like and you accept that, then for me, I'm not surprised by the comments and the complaints, right? But why I think it might be a positive thing is like, to get, I don't know how many it was, like 12,000 complaints or whatever.
Yeah, 24,000.
24,000 complaints, right, on diversity's thing. My take on that is like, good, because you're ruffling 24,000 feathers and you're making 24,000 people think, even if they're pissed and their first reaction is to complain. It's like, if I, like, the example is like, if I if I post a photo from the protests on my Instagram, right, which I did, I went and took pictures, I get 500 likes or something, which is sick, and everyone's like, oh, really nice, really powerful pictures. Those are all people that agree with me already. Those are all people that like my work, that like the cause, that care about the cause. It's just my echo chamber of us just like kissing each other's ass, going like, oh, you're amazing, cool. So in a way, I felt good that I like documented the protests and I put them online, and I've sent them to companies that want to, expose these things and put them out. But I'm very aware that none of that really hit the opposition. It was like just helping each other, of like, oh, we're all on the same side. Yeah. And I think what's now happened with diversity and with you is like you're on such a mainstream platform that what you've done or what diversity have done, which I could never do, or maybe someone else, just talking to their friend who also agrees with them, oh, how bad is it that people are, how bad are racists? Like that does, we both feel good and we both feel like, oh yeah, we're great white people, we're the good guys, but it's like, we're not hitting the real targets, and whose mind we really want to change is those people who are complaining.
True, yeah.
So now you've got all these people that have commented or complained. There's a conversation happening in their house. They've phoned up and be like, oh yeah, fuck this diversity. And then they put it down and they go, yeah, did you see that? Like now they're talking about it. And now they're understanding like, oh, there's people with differences of opinions. And unfortunately, it's you guys that have to take the brunt of that. And that's the negative side, is like you get hit with the hammer of the pushback.
Up and coming generation whose ideas, and they don't, because like trying to change the opinion of someone in their 60s or 70s who've formed these ideas over years and years. Trying to change them is probably hard, but the people underneath them who are still shaping their ideas, their understanding of the world and people and stuff, you're right, that's the people you're trying to connect with.
And even if it's like a portion of that, let's say like it's 24,000 complaints, if we think of like, let's say like 1,000 of those households, where even if that's like such a small portion, like 1,000 of those households, let's say, the parents have complained and be like, oh, fuck this. But then there's kids that are going, no, I don't think it's that bad. Then there's a conversation. Or the kids go, no, I disagree with you. Or then there's another 100 where the kids are like, no, actually, fuck you, mum. Like, and they're arguing. Like, how many arguments happened in those households?
It's like with Brexit, isn't it? Like, you had that, like, where people were like starting to, challenge some of these older ideas. So I think actually, I never even really looked at it in that way.
Yeah. Again, maybe I'm being an optimist.
No, but that's actually I think that's good optimism, because I think that's it. That's being the person or the people that challenge these ideas and saying, look, you've had it comfortable. Like how let's explore that a little bit more, and the generation underneath can then look at that. So that's actually.
And it's like, if you think about a war, the soldiers on the front line are the most. They're the ones that are going to get hurt. So that's like you guys, like you're out there pushing it and you're the ones that are getting the thing, but you're also the ones doing the most damage. The guy 3 rows back, like sitting in his tank, like isn't maybe doing as much.
Like the sergeant is like, go.
And it's good. Like, you need the whole thing. Like I thinking about my position in all of this is like, maybe I'm not going to be able to have such a direct impact like that, especially because of platform and stuff like that. But even like who I am and my lineage, speaking, I mean, again, I always speak as if I'm 100% white, but like my mum's side is Indian. But in this kind of Black Lives Matter equality situation, my position isn't going to draw as much fire as you guys. I don't think my position is, and this is the other thing I think with white people's position in this, we feel like, oh, well, because we're not drawing the fire and we're not on the front lines necessarily, we're useless. And it's like, I don't think we're useless. We can support these things. We can, there's a lot we can do from different positions. But for me, it's like, it's
also changing though, because I also think like what's really exciting to me about this new movement of Black Lives Matter, the hashtag, I think that actually if you look across the world, it's predominantly white.
It's quite it seems like quite an inclusive.
I mean, you've got countries like Germany or New Zealand or Australia, this country.
Yeah.
I mean, this country in London is very mixed, multicultural. But there's countries where you're like, Black Lives Matter is like
the media I've seen has been lots of mix.
Yeah, and when you see the march, you're like, wow, okay. So it's like it has cut through a generation of people who are like, actually, no, do you know what? this is wrong.
Yeah.
Especially in America, you know, what's going on in America is nuts. Like,
Yeah.
being a black man in America and getting in the car is you know, your life's a threat. And it is something that we in the black community have always known. Always.
Yeah.
Like, all this, like, stop and search or... growing up, I'm from, you know, I grew up in South London, so all this stuff I'm hearing about, to me, it's nothing new. It's like I've always,
you're like, oh, you guys are just realizing.
Yeah, I'm always used to the yellow sign, and you know, in Camberwell, you know, someone's been stabbed, so it's like, you know, the media's taking it on and it's pushing it now, but it's like it's always been there, and it's good now that, like, you know, more people are talking about it, because it's like, you know, you say this stuff is like, in this country, for example, you know, stop and search, abuse and harassment from police, for example, it's like we've been having that from youths. Like, we've always been having that. But then when you mention it, it's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? You say, no, the police are great, and and they are great. Don't get me wrong. In the sense of, like, you know, they're there to
hard job to do.
Hard job to do. But what I mean by, like, is like there is things going on that people aren't aware of, and it's like
been swept under the rug.
And now it's all coming to light. And I'm looking at these marches and I'm seeing like, right, there's actually people are getting it now, and I think that's quite, as you say, it is actually an exciting time to be in this moment.
And I think also there's a comedian I like was talking about this, but like that. We're at a generation now where there's a lot of different causes happening. Like, it's not like the white people are all just like, everyone's like, oh yeah, we're all happy, and then the black people are there and we're like, oh yeah, but we're like, you have like even like transgender people fighting for rights, any LGBTQ plus community, like all of that. And I think now, again, maybe being too much of an optimist, but now it seems like it's inclusive, because it's like black people are like, hey, this is happening to us, Black Lives Matter, and everyone else is going, oh, you're pissed with the government and stuff, so are we. Like, what's your cause? Like, let's go and do that. And everyone's like, even if it's not their cause, they know what a lot of different people are understanding that they know what it feels like to not be happy. And
it's going to be a big revolution. And, you know, like, you know, I think of Gil Heron Scott when he says the revolution will not be televised. And I feel like there's this undercurrent of like anger and, you know, discontent with, which was originally, like, for example, you take Black Lives Matter, was always in the black community. It was just that bubbling, like, you know, death after death after death and a death. And because of the pandemic, I think what happened with George Floyd is that, like, it all became heightened. You know, we'd all been in our homes, and where everyone's watching the media and everyone's watching our screens, and all you're being is fed all this information. So any kind of thing that happens, it was just bubbling, and it's and that's why that all just exploded, because it was like, enough now. Yeah. Like, you're not going to put that guy, like, and no, that's, come on. Yeah. We'd already known that from, and I'm sure there's things that's happened to, you know, black people in America that's worse than what's happened to George Floyd. But this was the first time it was like caught on camera, and it was so obvious. I mean, if you can't be upset about that, then, you know, it wasn't one of those ones.
There's no context needed. There's no
like, dude,
conversation.
Man, he was kneeling on that guy's neck for 8 minutes. Like, come on, bro.
And it was like the quote unquote perfect moment for that to happen, for things to kick off. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, there's no distractions, there's nothing. Like, it was just like a pile of firewood. Yeah. And someone just threw the match. And it was like, now is the time when we all, like, you know, the like funny thing with Twitter, I was like, oh, I got time today. It's like, we all had time today. Like, we're sitting in the house. It's like, okay, like, let's fucking talk about this shit.
And that's what it is. That's coming to fruition. And there's this, like, everything else, like you was talking about transgender movement. Yeah. You've got like, you know, there's all sorts of things. I mean, a lot of different movements are all coming together, and it's like, right, now's the time to really kickstart. And I feel like it's all
the anti-establishment, anything, anyone that feels like slighted by the establishment. I feel like it is kind of bringing them together. It's like, okay, I got your back, you got my back. Let's protest.
And that's I think that's good, man, because I feel like we need that a little bit. Like, I think people need to let loose, and there's a lot of anger that's going on in society, and like people let loose, and we can let loose through entertainment, you know, through music,
and it's like,
but we need to vent it a little bit as well.
And how long? I guess it's the famous Nina Simone quote of like, an artist's duty is to reflect the times, and it's like, how as sad as it is, how much great art has come from bad times, you know? And it's like, that is kind of like the duty of artists, you know, like what the Nina Simone quote of like, to reflect the times, but also to be inspired by the times, to like express feelings that are like, it doesn't even have to be like, you know, as on the nose as talking about it in a song or something like that. It can just be like, I need to express something and put it out. And it's like, it just baffles me. I understand, not that I understand racism, but like, I understand what people's problem is. They're uneducated, they're ignorant. I get it. What I don't get is that the people being like, oh, you can't, but don't do it in art. Don't do it on TV. It's like, that's where it's supposed to be done.
That is the strangest. I mean, art is literally all about, you know, expression of what's going on in the real world. That's the best art you see, whether it's like Banksy or, you know, whether it's you know, Madonna or Michael Jackson. I mean, it's literally what art is about. It's about talking about, whether it's through music, whether it's dance. So I don't understand. I mean, you look at Diversity's performance and you think, amazing. Those guys did something. They showed a reflection of 2020. I mean, they could have included like, you know, basketball legends that's passed away, just because I'm a big fan of Kobe. And you know, that was a big moment this year. We almost thought we were going to have World War III, but they have a 4 or 5 minute performance. So you know, they I think they captured the biggest moments of what's going on in 2020, which is, you know, COVID and the Black Lives Matter. Those are the two moments that were, and the message. I think like people forgot the messaging. Diversity was saying, let's share love, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But even that's their message.
Even if you disagree with the message, do you know what I mean? It's like, even if you're like a racist, ignorant person who doesn't agree with the message, it's like, but that's the place for them to do it. Like,
yeah.
do you know what I mean?
But why would you not? Why would you disagree with hold hands and let's all be Kumbaya? Do you know what I mean? Like their message isn't. It's different. Like some people, you know, there's Black Lives Matter, the political organization. They have an agenda to whatever they want to do, right? And then there's the hashtag, the movement, the
just
worldwide
the idea that Black Lives Matter.
You know, that whole movement that's been for hundreds of years. You know, Black Lives.
And I think people struggle to separate those two. They might be like, I think that's a small portion of people that maybe like they disagree with something they've heard from the organization, or they disagree with like something that's happened, and they're like, I don't agree that Black Lives Matter. And it's like, no, you're missing. Like you can say, I disagree with this specific thing of the organization. Like that's a fairly intelligent conversation.
And I've, you know, sadly, you know, some dancers in the dance community who were friends of mine, you know, don't understand that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's made me question, like, wow, like, how can you not get that? Like, you know, this is a big moment in the world. Like, no one's even talking about the organization. The organization was when people started talking about it and saying, oh, do you know who's behind this movement and blah, blah, blah. And then that became a focus to detract from this big movement. But the movement was bigger than Black Lives Matter organization. This thing went across the globe. And it wasn't about, no one was saying, oh yeah, you know, some of the more extreme ideas that they have. Everyone was just talking about like there was an injustice. You know, the world needs to be a better place. We all need to have parity. And I feel like that, you know, some friends of mine disappointed me with their take on that and pushing this whole thing of like, yeah, it's all this. And like you said, Black Lives Matter is bullshit and blah, blah, blah. And the way it's spun in parts of the media. And it's like, nah, bro.
It's like, for me, it always confuses me when, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations about this, but it's like when people are like, I don't like feminists because feminists hate men. And it's like, well, no, like feminism isn't about hating men. Some feminists hate men.
Yeah, exactly.
Some, like, all people are still people, no matter what movement they're behind. So there are some feminists who are fucking idiots. Like there are some right-wing racists who are very intelligent. Like everybody's a person, right? So you can't say, well... And
you might be right-wing and not be racist.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, there's loads of different... Everybody's nuanced as people. So it's like you saying like, oh, feminists hate men. It's like you've taken one group of people and tarred the entire movement with that. But if you like, the essence of what feminism is equality, right? And it's the same with Black Lives Matter. It's like, you might say, like, I think it's a very in context, it's a very intelligent conversation to be had about riots versus protests. Like, I'm not saying where I stand on it, like, that's a whole nother conversation. But like, if you were like, oh, I want to talk about, maybe I don't think like these things should have been broken or whatever, cool. Like, we can have that conversation all day long, but that's not the movement. As long as you understand that the movement is not about, let's go break stuff. The movement is about, we've got a problem because we don't blah, blah, blah. Then we can talk about whether it's, your place to tell people how to be upset and all that. Well, yeah,
because that's that. And then you get, it's like what people, you get people trying to police frustration.
Yeah, and it's like, you cannot understand that unless you
can't really try and police. But when you have this moment that's happened in the world, you kind of just go with it. So you have like everyone with all sorts of agendas, as we said, who just say, right, this is the moment that we go for it now. Yeah. It's like there's no time to wait. We've been, some of these people have been activists for like, half their lives, just been going, and it's like this big movement's happened now.
And especially in the States, it's like probably they've got dads and grandparents, or dads and mums and grandparents who have been fighting the same fight for 3 generations.
So when this thing happens, it's like, all right, cool, go for it. Then you have, is the riots a symptom of the frustrations that people are going, or is it some planned thing, or is it a combination of the two? Who knows? Yeah. But it is the right moment to. It's not the time to be focusing on looting or riots. It's like, it's actually like, why is this happening? Like, exactly. In an ideal world where everything is equal, we can say, hey, you shouldn't break shop windows. But when you've been oppressing people for 400 years, it's like, that's not the most, like... It's like a child. Sometimes with children, like with my son, and sometimes it's like he's having a tantrum, he's doing this, or he's getting really, really upset. And we can really shout at Ty, or you can give him a light smack on the bottom or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's more interesting to know, why is he frustrated? Once you can find out, solve
it way quicker.
Yeah, once you find out, then you can prevent it happening. Dealing with the symptom, like how some of our parents, when we were younger, dealt with it, wasn't always the best solution, because it just makes you rebel even more.
Like, just saying to a kid, like, I used to work with kids a lot and like teaching, but it's like, stop crying. It's like, why are you just telling? I've heard so many like teachers and other, like when I was working in a school, like stop crying. It's like, find out why they're crying. Because if it's like, especially I used to work with kids with special needs, so like an autistic kid or something, and it's like, stop crying. It's like, he's hungry. Like, get him some food and he'll stop crying. Yeah. But just telling someone to stop crying isn't solving shit. And then 5 minutes later, they're going to be crying again, So it's
and you're angry because they're crying and it's having this crazy tantrum, when it's like, you could probably find out the reason why they're crying, the reason why they're having these tantrums, and then actually you can prevent. And then when they're calm, explain to them that, oh, okay, this X, Y, Z, and this.
In future, maybe you shouldn't, do this. But I don't understand, for people that are like, and obviously it's like us echo chamber. Of course, we're not going to understand because we're not racist. But like, for people that are like, oh, they shouldn't be rioting. It's like, isn't it, if you don't want riots to happen, isn't quicker to figure out why they're happening and try and do something in that realm?
Well, I think I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I'll say this quick because I know we're almost pressed for time. But I'll just say, like, I feel like sometimes it's almost like a scapegoat and for people that have agendas, to say like, oh, okay, let's focus on that. Let's highlight this.
Yes, 100%.
For the people that aren't, there's a general part of the population that aren't as clever as some of the other people who try and scapegoat that stuff. And it's like,
you have to give them a bad guy. Yeah.
For example, like, look at the government. The government, like, we talked about Black Lives Matter, but you say, let's use media, for example. This whole thing exploded. Everybody's saying, right, this is just wrong. We have to do something about this Black Lives Matter issue. Like, we let's start looking at ourselves. Everyone's looking within, and how do we change things? And then you get all these like companies and all these people who are just basically, when I say jumping on the bandwagon, I don't mean they're jumping on the bandwagon. What they're doing is like saying, all right, do you know what? We'll put a hashtag Black Lives Matter. Or on our, everyone, all the football players will write Black Lives Matter. And you could say it's spreading awareness, but it's like, what does that do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, how do you solve the problem? Like, you're just dealing with symptoms. It's like the government will say, all right, we have a problem with knives in London, particularly in London, certain parts of South London and all of London. We have a problem with knives. It's like, all right, stop and search. We're going to be more stricter on sentencing. We're going to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, okay, but you're not really dealing with the real problem, which is like poor communities, young kids, no more youth centers, no more community projects, nothing for these kids to do. So just hang around in the States and just, there's no, somewhere in poverty. So it's like, you got to deal with that. Stop trying to scapegoat with these little things. Like, we're going to give them tougher sentences and we're going to make sure they stop and search. And it's like these clever people who don't want to spend money on the things. Because the community, for example, where I'm from, we've been saying the same thing. It's like, why are you getting rid of all these youth centers? Why are you getting rid of like these educational programs, after school stuff?
Like,
and it's like,
realistically,
like
some kid who's going to go out there with a knife and join a gang is not like, oh, well, like, the sentences aren't so bad, so I might join a gang today. It's like, they're not, that's already like the being against the law thing has already been accepted.
Like, I've got goosebumps because I actually have dancers in the community that I'm like, when I think about it, it's quite emotional because I'm like, I remember you. I won't mention their names.
Yeah.
I remember you like when your mum would call me and would be like, yo, he's out on the streets, like he's with the gang.
Yeah.
Can you bring him into the youth centre? I used to work in St. Mary's Youth Centre. And then like, wow, I see you on TV, like smashing it. And like your whole world, I've seen whole lives change just from like investment in communities that have been left behind.
And that's the lucky few.
Yeah.
Imagine if that was done on a grand scale.
Yeah. So I feel like that's when I look at those situations and I look at things like dance and, whether it's magic or whether we're teaching. And I feel like people just ain't dealing with the root. They're not dealing with the root cause of the problem. They're attacking these symptoms, and it's people who know what they're doing. They're scapegoating. It's like, they're looting. No. Yeah. Well, there is a problem, but those looters,
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, like as you said, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
These communities been left behind. Let's deal with that. And then you wouldn't have any of that. You wouldn't have no looting. You know what I mean? So it's
just putting a fucking plaster over like
over
an amputated leg. Like
it's mad.
Yeah, I hate you, man. All right, so let's just finish off with some Britain's Got Talent talk. So tell me about, like, you feeling good so far?
Yeah.
Because this is going to come out Saturday, so we've got a week until your finals performance.
Yeah.
Because it's the next Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 10th of October.
10th of October, I need everyone, all the community, dance community.
Let's go, guys. I don't know how much following I got, but anyone that is listening, let's tune in and vote for Bones.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm really excited to have even got through to the final.
Did you? How far did you see yourself going when you entered? Did you think you'd get far?
Do you know, at the time when I did the audition, it was more about just doing an amazing audition that you can have as a piece of footage that you can use for an amazing show reel. And
so like, if I only get this far, I'm still happy. Yeah,
you want to have the best of me, because that's, most people I know from my community probably don't watch the show. They probably catch it on news. Like, oh, that was sick, bro. Did you see that? Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of media that we get consumed with. So, Britain's Got Talent is a big show, but there's so much stuff that's going on in the world. So it was just, initially it was just to, just having a great audition. And then obviously, you always want to get to the finals. You always want to win it, for example, but you've got to take it step by step. So when I got through to the semis, I was like, okay, cool. I kind of like, do you know what? Like, I need to get to the final now. Do you know what I mean? I got that.
So as soon as you knew you got to the semis, you were like, oh, I can't stop here.
Do you know what? I need to get to the I don't want to come out in the semis, And so I really worked hard with, friends and read up about Henry and stuff like that. And I had a real story. My Mrs. Mel had been in Canada for 6 months. I hadn't seen my son or my missus for 6 months because of COVID. So it just felt like, okay, there's a real piece to here. And luckily I won that whole thing. And now, I feel like, okay, this is going to be around 10 million people watching the final. Now is the time to do a performance that, I can be proud of and be like, regardless of whether or not whatever happens, and hopefully I win the show. But, it's not about, it's about just going out there and showcasing the performance that I can look back and go, do you know what? It was a sick journey, like, and I hope people enjoy it. And, it's about, the piece that I'm going to be doing is about hope and, new beginnings and hoping and future beginnings, and like, just believing in that, you know. I'm a big fan of those films like Shawshank Redemption, so you know, I'm gonna have all those cheesy quotes in there.
Sick.
I love those films, man. I love those films, like
Sick.
and that kind of stuff. So I thought that's what we need right now in this in this climate.
I obviously you can't spoil anything, but what can you tell us about what you've kind of learned so far that you want to like put into the finals, or is there nothing you want to talk about that?
No. I can tell you because like I think in the first audition, it was like. I feel the first audition was a bit badass, you know, like it was a bit like, I appear behind Simon, and the conditions were nuts because, you know, like we had Sarah that was behind Simon, and how did he transform, and, you know, all the audience. And I felt it was a great, what the fuck, how did he do that moment, as well as good, you know, good messaging behind it, the historical aspect I touched on. Whereas in the semis, I feel like it was more about the storytelling, more about historical aspects, and the what the fuck moment wasn't as important as the storytelling, the presentation, the messaging.
Was that on purpose, or is that looking back you realize?
Looking back, like I feel like it was the piece as well is like, you know, if you put too much magic in that particular piece, I don't know, I feel like it could have taken away from what the story was about, the presentation. Like you can't put too much, like what the fuck, how did he do it? It's
because it was basically just like one trick, like a lead up to that. Whereas you, like you're saying, if you put too many little bits and other little allusions in, it would have.
It's just like it sort of detracts of like your messaging. Like I think good storytelling, you should have good messaging and clear put. Whereas with the final, I think like I want to try and encompass all of that. I want some what the fuck moments in there. And to close it off with good story, good messaging, and storytelling as well, but not in the context of just about Henry Box Brown. This final piece is going to be about a little bit. I was going to
ask you if you were going to bring that back.
Yeah, I'll close it off because I feel like, okay, we did it in the first, we did it in the second, you know, so there's an expectation of like, well, is he going to continue it? I want to sort of use that to try and talk about more about myself, and let people know bit more of my background and the future beginnings.
Sick.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's really good to hear, man. Well, fucking best of luck with that.
Thanks, bro.
For tuning in. What do you see, like, what's the kind of plans post next Saturday? Do you have anything big like coming up? That
so I'm doing at this moment in time, I'm doing on October the 15th, a first live show called A Kind of Magic, which I did online, but we're going to go to Clapham Grand. And at this moment in time, you know, pubs and restaurants and have to close by 10. So our show will be like from 7 till, you know, closing time will be 10. But it's like live. It's a real show with social distancing guidelines and rules and everything like that. So you have to come in bubbles. But I feel like it's a step into the real world and actually I've been performing in Britain's Got Talent, of course, but like to perform for real punters and just get a little bit of that of normality. So that's exciting. And then obviously next year I'm doing my postponed UK tour is back on next year, starting from around, you know, March, April. We're still confirming dates.
Nice.
So hopefully it will be around the time when, you know, fingers crossed, we will be coming back to some form of normality. And you know, then there's some, you know, TV stuff I'm working on. That's projects that's were put on hold. That's going to be next year.
Starting to come back a bit.
So onwards and upwards, and then Vegas eventually.
And then I guess like after this, maybe there'll be some more opportunities that come from. Yeah,
and that's why we do it. Like you know, we hope that, you know, there's going to be some opportunities, and, you know, maybe a film, maybe talk about Henry Box Brown in more depth, because it is I think like it's Black History Month tomorrow, and I feel like people, it is good to read up about Henry Box Brown. I know it's American history, but it's still part of you know, Black history, and I think like it's his story is so inspirational. Like it's mad. Like he was an advocate for private mail in America, because like in that time, the idea of like sending a package across America and like people thinking that you know, that's going to be safe. People are like, no, I'm not sending, I can't do that because, you know, someone
are
might
gonna read
open
it or
it,
steal it.
And then they had this great like story. It's like, well, this guy traveled 5 days in a box and no one opened it. So you can trust us with your package. And so the mail there, the private mail there used that Henry Box Brown.
Mad. So he's like an advert for the postal service.
Literally.
That's sick.
Literally. And then obviously he was an advocate for slavery. His story is quite interesting because Frederick Douglass and some of the abolitionists around the time weren't too happy with Henry Box Brown exposing how he escaped, because they wanted other slaves to be able to use the same method of mailing themselves. Because
now, obviously, as soon as he says that, all the slave owners are going to...
Yeah, exactly. So there was a little bit of, you know, discontent. And then, you know, depending on each historian, some people say that was a bit more. Some historians say it wasn't as bad as that. You know, there was a little bit of... But
I can imagine it being like quite a sensitive thing to not reveal.
Yeah, they didn't want to reveal it, and he revealed it and made it a whole show.
He was the first masked magician.
Like,
revealing.
Here's how I did it, guys. You know, sold a book, made a song about it. But then there's also that thing of like, well, if he hadn't shown people, would it have, like, because he was a big speaker, would he have been able to transcend his message across the world like how he did? So it's like what we were saying before. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of exposure to be able to get a message across.
And like also inspire people that, okay, maybe like that wasn't the way to do that, but it's possible to, because, you know, I think a lot of, not to go into, that's a whole nother talk in itself, but I guess part of slavery was like keeping people thinking that their only
mentally
option was
enslaved.
Exactly. So I guess even though maybe that took away an option of escape, it liberated their minds almost of like, holy shit, we can find ways to escape. What else can we do?
Well, yeah, it literally liberated so many people, because once you can liberate people's minds, that's when you can actually do that in the physical, because it's like, oh wait, we can get out of this. We're not bound to, there's you know, in the north, you know, the rules were totally different from how they were in the south. So if you can get over to, you know, north part of America, then you're in a much better position. So people like, you know, you had some people died trying to do what he did. But you know, you'd rather die knowing that you may be able to risk death, knowing that you can gain a new life, than just die not even trying. You know, it sounds like I'm just doing a 50 Cent quote. Get rich or die trying.
Oh yeah, but yeah, that's sick, man, and I fucking love the story, and I think it's dope, and I love the performances. I'm fucking looking forward to it, man.
I'm glad that you have me on here, because I watch you. I love this podcast.
Thank you, man.
I try and watch as many as I can. I saw one you did with Nadia, and that was really sick. And I've seen a couple of other ones. You did one with Spin. So
thanks, man. I super appreciate it, man. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm just doing this for me and no one's listening, and then people say stuff like that and I'm like, oh fuck yeah, all right, let's do the next one. It kind of pushes me to do more when people...
It's good, man. And it's like a different medium. Like people like it's just good to talk, you know.
Bro, I had someone that like shared the one episode I did, and they were like, oh, like it's long but it's worth a watch kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, I want it to be long, because it's like everything is fucking quick now. Do you know what I mean? Like everything is... There's so many reels and Insta videos and even like dance videos have become shorter because people just want to do 1 minute. And I'm like, yeah, like that's the point of this, is that I'm not that's what I like about YouTube. As much as, you know, sometimes it does jar me. YouTube as a medium is like, I'm a big boxing fan as well. I like MMA, but I'm more into boxing. And I like how YouTube is letting content creators monetize. It's like they're saying, well, we want long form content now. And it's just interesting, like, you know, Kugan Cassius, who's owns this channel called IFL TV, and I feel like I've been part of his journey, because I've seen how he's like, you know, he's huge now. He's like probably one of the biggest boxing channels, and he has this banter with Eddie Hearn, who's a Sky Sports boxing promoter and stuff. And just seeing their journey and what they do, they literally do it, like they do these like 40 minutes, hour and a half. Just what we're doing now, just talk. I love it, man.
And it's just, people just sit there and you get your cup of tea and you watch it and you just love it. And it feels like you're down the pub having a chat. Or Joe Rogan, for example, he sits down and just chats.
He's like one of the most successful would you say maybe like media personalities at the moment.
Yeah.
And he does like 3-hour podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think there is definitely something about, and I'm not saying that's with this because this is going to need time to get traction, I think. But I think there's definitely like, whereas everything was like long form before, films and whatever, then the wave of like instant content came and that was revolutionary. Everyone was like, oh yes, I don't have to sit through that. I can just watch this. And now there's almost like a going back. It's like
100% it's
because
going
everything's quick. I want some, like I find this, especially, I don't know, maybe it's just my type of person. Not everybody's like that, but I'm like, yeah, I see people doing a reel. I see people doing this. I want to hear intelligent conversations, not like
I honestly that's what I watch. If I see something with a topic I'm interested in and it's like 1 hour,
Some
2 hours, and it's like, this is it, and take my time, and when I finish doing some work, commercial work, I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna sit down and just watch this for 2 hours now.
Yeah, and just like really enjoy learn some shit and
because there's so much engaging. Like my mister said, I talk a bit too much, but I like that. I think that's one way of relaxing that you don't get with like, like it's kind of jarring for me to keep scrolling. It's sort of like,
and it's almost like I feel like there's something, and this is also why I had a break during lockdown because I was like, I don't want to do the Zoom things and record them. No shade to anyone that does them, but I was just like, that's not why I want to do this. I want to sit with someone and like build a connection kind of thing. Because it's like, you get, say when you're going through Insta or YouTube or whatever, when it's short stuff, it's almost like you build a new connection with every scroll. You're like, oh, there's a person. Okay, cool. There's a person. And it's like with this, it's like, we've got like an hour and 45 minutes of just like getting to know each other.
You get to know someone like, for example, Joe Rogan and David Blaine. Reason why I think that was the most interesting, if you watch it, Joe Rogan with David Blaine. I watched
some of it. I don't think I finished it.
It's a long thing, but that's the most interesting interview I've ever seen David Blaine do.
Yeah.
David Blaine's, he's media trained. He goes on there for 10 minutes and does his thing, and he's like, ooh, David Blaine. But Joe Rogan is a bit like you.
Stop it. He said Joe Rogan's a bit like me.
I'm just feeding the ego in there. But what I like about him is that, like, with Joe Rogan, it's like you can't bullshit him.
Yeah.
And there was a level of David Blaine that we all saw as magicians that was a bit more honest, because Joe Rogan was like, he's not that type of interviewer. He's not going to be like, he's not like traditional media is going to sit there and say, oh, David, ooh. He's just like he didn't even like, for example, what's sort of like a relief is usually in a lot of these things, everyone says, oh, Bones, I want to interview you. Can you do my Instagram live? And so, oh yeah, show some tricks.
Yeah. I was adamant I'm not going to ask you to do
that. But that's what I liked about Joe Rogan's interview with David Blaine. It was like, Blaine was almost forcing himself to like, let me try and amaze him. Joe was like, no, you don't have to do that shit here. Let's just talk. Let the people get to know you. Let's get into your brain. You're doing this big stunt. We know you're good. We know you've done this thing. Like, just chat. And like, there was just an honesty in David Blaine. I was like, rah, like, he just, wow, this is just a different way of interviewing, and I really enjoyed that interview.
Yeah, for me, I'm the same, especially with all those. I think that's the beauty of like podcasting as opposed to like an interview where it's like. Also, I didn't want it to. Whenever I started this, I didn't want it to be like, so Bones, how do you feel about this? And then I just shut up. It's like I want to have a conversation.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you don't have like. Not that there's anything wrong with notes, but you don't have like
literally no notes. Like only thing that's here is a timer for anyone.
Like
I don't have notes.
You're not like, okay, I've talked about it. You're just kind of like, all right, off the top.
Yeah, and I like the most I do is like I kind of research in air quotes, but like I look into like I'll be on your Instagram and stuff just to see if there's anything interesting that I'm curious about that I haven't thought of. But yeah, it's more like I just want to react to what you say, and if I can't have a good conversation with someone, why are they on the podcast? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not, and I never want to do it for like, oh, this person's like more than you having a name or having views on YouTube. It was like, because I know I can have a good conversation with you, and you're really close to Lee, who's like one of my best friends.
Yeah. Me and him talk for hours.
And he said, like, I've heard, so like, we'll be talking about stuff. He's like, oh yeah, I was talking to Bones about this. So it's like, for me, I'm like, yeah, I know we can have a good conversation. That was the point. But
it's interesting because like with my social media, and I'm still struggling with maintaining that because it's not as attractive to me like pushing that, even though I know in this era we should and blah, blah, blah. It's not really something I get super excited about. I don't get
More
excited
like a job.
let's go make an Instagram post. You know, like it's not, it just doesn't excite me the same way as like, oh, let's go and perform on stage, or let's go and I'd rather just have a chat or show a couple of bits, or it's different. So it's interesting when you look at my social media, you know, like you may not get to know me the same way as you do if you just have a chat.
Yeah.
Like my social media is designed to obviously show the best of what I'm doing, but you know, I'm a bit
not
lazy.
like a personal glimpse into your life.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit lazy with it sometimes. And I know I should be. I've been off it for like a few days, and even sometimes I'm like, I've just done BGT. I should probably start like posting stuff and blah blah. And I will start posting, guys. I'll do some more tricks.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, it's just not as fun as.
Yeah, I'm more like literally. You'll see me. I won't post for weeks, and my mates will be like, bro, you need to post, man. Like, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, let's whack out of the vault. But then you meet me in person. You know, we've been chatting for 1 hour 49 minutes. But before this, we were already talking for about an hour anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I just this type of interviews where I can do this for hours, like just chatting about all sorts. So I appreciate it anyway.
Bro, super appreciate you coming. Thanks, man. I think we'll wrap it up. We talked about what you got plans. Yeah, I think that's kind of it, really. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk for another few hours anyway, but like, yeah, in terms of content that I wanted to cover, I reckon we're all right. So anyone that's listening, basically Bones said that I'm Joe Rogan. So if you take away anything from this episode, is that I'm Joe Rogan.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, man. It's good. I'm enjoying your journey as well.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I'm hoping to look back at this and be like, oh, remember when we used to just do it in my living room? But yeah, gotta keep working hard so that changes. But thanks for coming, man. I super appreciate it. And like, the podcast is only as good as the guests. So like,
thank you. So
nice
this will be the best one, yeah.
But yeah, it makes me happy that people trust me enough to, like, you coming on this is like a cosign that you think I'm good enough to talk to, kind of thing. So yeah, super appreciate that, and super appreciate everyone listening and sharing it on their Insta stories.
Keep listening, man. Keep
social
listening,
medias
talking.
and all that. Always like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. And yeah, see everyone next week for episode 22. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say. Thanks, guys. Boom.